Vivaan. Okay, thank you for letting me know, I said, the sense of defeat making my words thick and hard to vocalize. I hung up the phone and started pacing. That was a third potential investor that had rejected my proposal for Musafir. How could this be happening? They seemed to like the idea when I first met them, but now it seemed like a different story. I sat down at the table in front of me and turned on my laptop. I clicked on the file that listed potential investor information. Sadly, I highlighted the name of the gentleman I just spoken to with two alphabets. No. Discouraged, I looked at the other names, trying to visualize each one and their expressions when I had met them. One name caught my attention, Daksh Chandran. I recalled he seemed very interested in the presentation, his eyes lighting up as I mentioned various places where I could take groups. Picking up my phone once again, I called Mr. Chandran. He answered the phone cheerfully and I introduced myself. Ah, Vivaan, he said, his voice a little more guarded. I was planning to call you soon. I'm sure you are wondering what my decision is on investing in your little company. Ah, oh, your little company? Doesn't sound very promising. I thought to myself. I tried to ignore the thought and responded to his comment. Yes, sir, I said respectfully. Are there any other questions that you have for me that will help you make your final decision on investing in my startup? I heard him sigh at the other end of the phone and my hand clenched nervously. Let me ask you one question. You said before you started exploring parts of India, you traveled to different areas of the world. That's right, I did. Why? He asked bluntly. It is as I mentioned in my presentation, I didn't realize the true beauty that was right in our backyard. The history, the different regions. I thought I wanted more. I thought I needed to leave our country to learn about the world. Ah, yes, he said. I realized he was leading me down the wrong path, one that would end up rejecting my tour company, and was quickly to explain, but I also said that was wrong, that the riches of India and had claimed my heart. It is these areas that I want to show to people. Would that younger Vivan have listened to someone about the beauties of India? I shook my head sadly. I wanted to lie to him, to tell him that if someone had sold the idea of staying in our country to me at that age, I would have stayed. But I remembered my desire to escape the borders of our country. I would listen to me now, was all I could say. But before, he pressed on. Now it was my turn to sigh. I closed my eyes, praying for a flash of inspiration as I spoke to this man. But the sense of defeat was too much, I couldn't push through it to find those reasons to stay. Mr. Chandran continued, I think it's a good idea, Vivan. I truly do. I started to brighten up a little and stood from my chair excitedly. So, you will be willing to invest in Musafir? That's terrific. You misunderstand me, he said, and my heart sank once more. I personally like the idea, but I'm one person. I'm an old man. The demographic you speak of targeting is nowhere near my age. He said, chuckling a little. I'm sorry, Vivan. I did some research of my own, and the younger generation are determined to leave India. So we give them a reason to stay. I was growing desperate. Making the assumption that this demographic will have such an abrupt change of heart is a dangerous gamble. He said sadly, I thought about this long and hard, and my answer is no. I cannot risk my finance in an investment such as this. Perhaps later, when you are established and are ready to expand, I may consider. But for now, people want to travel abroad and not India. I couldn't change his mind, and to push any harder would just make me look like a fool. And put off any potential investment opportunities in the future, I walked to the window and looked out. Beyond the building's top, my beautiful beloved India, these jungles, temples, and castles, they were just waiting for people to appreciate them. If people could just look beyond the dusty cities, they would realize how foolish they were to hop on a plane and escape to other countries. Thank you for your time, sir. I said, I appreciate your honesty and I'm grateful that you took the time to speak with me. I hope I'm wrong, Mr. Chandran said. I laughed, aware that there was a sadness in the sound. I too hope you are. Disconnecting the call, I trudged back to my laptop and sadly highlighted his name, writing no beside it. Over the next several days, I reached out to everyone on my list and got the same response from each one. Some regretful like Daksh Chandran, others practically calling my Idea crazy. Nobody wants to spend money to see India. One man said in a condensing tone, when they spend money traveling, they want their money to take them to other places, not their backyard. Your dream is just that, a dream. A rather insane one, if you ask me. I wanted to flee, to lose myself and bury my frustration with an almost desperate need. I packed my travel bag and prepared for another trip. My destination? The caves in Taboo? I decided I could hide away in the darkness and wait for the sting of rejection to heal itself. I picked up my bag, stalking to the door, then sighing. I dropped it onto the colorful rug near the front door. I couldn't run now. Now, while Kabil still needed me, he was home, and while he was healing physically, he was still hurting emotionally. No, I needed to stay and lean on my friends, the way I had encouraged them to lean on me since that horrible fire. I called Meera and asked her to meet me at Kabir and Nisha's apartment. Then I called and spoke with Nisha, suggesting that I get some takeout food from one of Kabir's favorite restaurants and came over. I've asked Meera to meet me at your place too. I would like to talk to the three of you. Of course, Nisha responded. I haven't started preparing dinner yet, so this will be a welcome break. I knew Nisha was picking up on my tense aura, but she wasn't going to comment on it over the phone. I appreciated her sensitivity. She was an extremely wise woman. I'll see you soon, I said and hung up. An hour later, we gathered at the table. Even Kabir, who often took his meals where he could be comfortable in the living room, insisted on coming to the table to eat. I wondered if Nisha had clued him into the serious tone of my voice when I spoke to her. I didn't have long to wonder. We had barely started eating when Kabir looked at me pointedly. Something is wrong, he said bluntly. I sighed and pushed the plate away from me. I had no appetite anyway, so there was no sense putting off what I had to tell them. The investors turned down Musafir. I started and looked around the table at my dear friends, watching the emotions playing over their faces like ripples in a lake. There was shock and sadness, but then I saw determination. Maybe you can start on a smaller scale. Kabir suggested create a small tour group. Keep your own payment down, maybe as an introductory rate. Nisha nodded. Small steps, she said. Create a following with a small number of people. Capture their experiences and use them in your marketing plan. Test your success, Kabir continued. We all know it's going to be a success, you just need to prove it. Can you go back to your investors once you're established? Meera asked. I thought about it, mentally going through the list. I won't crawl back to the people who outright laughed at me, but there were a handful of others like Mr. Chandran who expressed true regret in having to turn down the investment opportunity. If I could come back with a successful pilot program, perhaps they would be more willing to listen a second time. I think it's a good idea. I agreed. There are some that would be keen to invest if I could prove the success. I didn't really think to start small, but it's a good idea, Kabir. The four of us spoke at length about how to best revamp the plan. I had to scale it down to a more local group for now. There were plenty of areas that I could take people at a reasonable rate as a test groups. As we spoke, I began to get extremely excited and even started eating again. The food was getting cold, but I didn't care. Where will you get your finances though? Nisha asked, phoning with her concern. I have about 5 lakh rupees saved from my share of the profits from Cafe Kabir, I said, wincing as I said the name. Perhaps I shouldn't have mentioned the name of the Kabir's beloved coffee shop, but it was important because I had another subject to bring up. Nisha brightened when she heard the figure. It was a modest sum, but she had a good eye head of for figures, and as a young mother, she thrived in opportunities to make something out of nothing. I did have another thought I wanted to speak to you three about. Though I started again, looking directly at Kabir. This next question was for everyone, but it probably concerned him the most. Yes, Kabir said. He sat back, and I could tell he was starting to get uncomfortable from sitting at the table for so long. Just did we take the conversation into the living room where we could all sit comfortably. Nisha and Meera took care of the dishes, and I slowly walked Kabir into the living room, carefully helping him to settle in his most comfortable chair. It was a drawn-out process, and by the time we were ready to resume the conversation, Nisha and Meera rejoined us. After checking on Gianna, who was sleeping peacefully in her cot, I didn't really know where to start, even though I was trying to collect my thoughts in a few minutes since we had left the table. They waited patiently for me to find my starting point, although I could tell on all their faces that they were curious to hear what I had to say. I have 5 lakh rupees, I started again, but I'm not sure if it is the best idea to use that to start Musafir. Meera grasped. Why? Vivaan, this is your dream. But there are other dreams, and there is another story that needs to continue. I looked at Kabir and took a deep breath. Maybe we should use the money to rebuild Cafe Kabir instead. Kabir let out a little cry. Oh, Vivaan, no. No? I repeated, surprised. Perhaps I have been reading him wrong all these weeks. Maybe he spoke about rebuilding but didn't really want to return to the cafe life. He quickly dispelled that thought, leaning forward urgently in his chair. Kabir will be rebuilt, but it can wait, he said. Looking at Nisha, who nodded her agreement, I think, he continued, that the most urgent need is to start Musafir. But it's final, Kabir said firmly. I smiled, feeling a tingle of pleasure run through down my arms. These friends, they meant so much to me, but to hear Kabir's determination in supporting my company and to see Nisha and Mira's glistening eyes as they empathetically agreed, it was overwhelming. I thought fleetingly at my urgency only a few hours ago to flee to some dark caves, and I felt foolish. This was what I needed, not some cold cave somewhere that wouldn't fix me. I needed the warm, bright encouragement of these 3 people. When is a friendship formed? I wondered fleetingly. Just like falling in love, there is never an actually starting point. It just is filling your heart with minute moments. I saw an amazing sight. It was that look you share with a friend that shows you that they truly understand you. They all had that same strong, steady gaze. I wanted to say something, but some emotions cannot be put into words. If you try, you take away their power. I knew this, though, friends more valuable than gold. They know us in a way that we don't even know ourselves, laughing during our celebrations and crying in our disappointments. I'm not much for crying, but I could feel the tears welling up in my eyes. Thank you, I whispered, unable to speak any louder. I can't tell you how much I appreciate each and every one of you. I realized then how much people need people. Nobody can know anything or do anything all by themselves. If you want to truly succeed, you need the support of many. They understand what I needed like daytime understands the night. When the time is right, Meera suggested we can use some of the profits from Musafir to rebuild Cafe Kabir. I agreed that is a very good idea. Now it's my turn to say something. Meera continued. Everyone turned to her, and for the first time this evening I noticed a satisfied smile playing around her lips. I've been in negotiation with my publishers. As you know, we are almost ready to close the deal. That is terrific, Nisha breathed. Judging from the look on your face, the negotiations are going very well. Meera nodded happily. Better than I could have ever dreamed. Do you have a figure yet? She shook her head. We haven't agreed on a final price, but yet what I can tell you that it is already much greater than my other books. That is fantastic, I said, leaning over and wrapping my arms around her. I'm not surprised though, you are a very talented woman, and of course your publishers want to keep you happy. As long as things continue to go well, and I have every confidence that they will, I should be getting the advance. Within a month or two, we can use that money to help boost Musafir and rebuild Cafe Kabir. I stood up quickly and pulled Meera to her feet. Vivaan, she cried happily. I wrapped my arms around her and picked her up. Spinning her around as she laughed, I closed my eyes and buried my face in her hair. Before the night was over, we agreed that I would move forward as soon as possible with my limited funds to start organizing my startup, and then Meera, now the co-owner of Musafir, would contribute part of her advance when it was time to launch the company. After so many rough weeks, I was starting to believe that fate was starting to smile at us once more.